Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm Purple Elf Gaming here, and today we are playing some more Bloons Adventure on Tower Defense. But today, we're not really playing because we are doing a guide today. But quickly, I want to mention something. I have a new microphone today, so is there a difference? Can you hear a difference? You might not notice now, but like by the end of the video, let me know. Does it sound better, worse, same? I don't know. It's a little hard to tell for me. I did a bit of testing, but I don't exactly know how well it's going to work so far, so let me know. I'd love to hear your opinion. But today, I'm sort of doing a beginner to intermediate guide for the game. Talking about just the game in general. I've done this before, but this is more of an updated version, I guess, and more focused on beginner and intermediate. So, yeah, we're going to just, I guess, get into this. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is characters, because they're a big deal, especially early game. They are a big deal. You start off with Jake and Finn. You get Max in the tutorial level. I don't think I need to go over the tutorial level. Same thing with PB. Then, what the game tells you to do is get Ice King first. And you know what? Getting Ice King makes a lot of sense. His maps are really, really easy. If we look over here, actually, we have Winter's Coming and Ice King's Throne Room. Winter's Coming is the easiest map in the entire game. Ice King's Throne Room is pretty easy. So, heavily recommend. You probably should get Ice King on pretty early. But then, my personal recommendation, because really your characters is the first thing you do in the game, my honest recommendation is to probably either go for Sai or Sam into Flame Princess. Potentially both Sai and Sam, because they will be very useful in getting Flame Princess. And once you get her, it'll be a big deal for early game, because she has homing projectiles, and Sai does as well, but her homing projectiles can pop lead, which is a big deal. Plus, she has a camo upgrade. Sai also has natural camo protection. Sam can get camo and lead. It's really powerful. Also, Sam technically homes as well. Homing's gonna be a big theme. Homing's very powerful, especially early game, and it's just generally a good thing. So, what you're gonna want to do is there's a couple maps you gotta do in order to get access to them. Sai and Sam are located. So, Sam, I'm gonna start off with Sam because Sam's are a little more interesting. The Sam's maps actually introduce a little bit of an interesting feature. So I believe once you do the Ice King map, you get access to Finn's pink sweater, which is going to be useful for one of these maps. First off, mystery doors. Strategy for this map is pretty basic. First things first. All of these maps to get characters. Unless I specifically say otherwise, which I will do later on, you can get them on normal mode, do them on normal mode. Don't even bother doing hard, extreme, and purple, anything like that, until you've gotten at least a couple characters set up. Characters are by far first priority. So on normal mode, you can do this one. It's a little interesting because there are 3 separate tracks, but the main idea is to just place all of your towers at the exit on the far right. And if not the exit, if you run out of space, which you probably shouldn't, because they don't have too many allies or, well, characters at this point. If need be, I recommend going probably more towards up and left rather than down and, well, you can't exactly go right. Speaking of which, with allies, we're going to talk about this quickly because this is actually fairly important. We're going to go to collection here because it's simpler. Allies. Quick thing. Businessman. Really, really good as far as allies go. He's really cheap. He's good attack speed, as it says. He's pretty powerful. He can be very useful. Place him near the exit, especially early game. He's a pretty good starter. Though, go back to early game, as I was saying here. If you can, place Finn and Jake, get Brofist up as soon as possible. It doesn't have a level requirement. It's a big deal. They'll make you some money. I will show that probably in a second. Finn and Jake, get some money making. Businessmen are good. And then, since at this point, this Sam's probably the first one you're going to go for, though you can do side, there isn't an exact difference. You want to get PB for camo in order to get camo protection. If you didn't know, there will be camo balloons on around 24, I believe. You need super intelligence. I recommend targeting her on first. You can target strong, but it's a little risky. She might miss. And for lead pop power, Jake, you need to buy at least Mace Hand. I recommend going for like Jake of all trades, and potentially Butt Push is actually a very useful upgrade as it adds some knockback. Those would probably be my recommendation for your lead pop power. That you don't need until I believe it's around 26, so you should be fine. But you have to keep that in mind. Once you get to like around 20-ish, I recommend you make sure you have your lead and camo protection working on it. Do not worry about it early on. That's a mistake I made. I was like, oh, it's around 14, time to get camo protection. No, you don't need it and, well, later on in the game. But for this point, you really don't need it, so honestly, don't think about it until later on. But this map's pretty basic. What we're going to go into now is Wizard Royale. So this is battle. They have a set track. There's no longer different tracks. They start at the front and at the back. I recommend centralizing your defense at center and exit, which is far left and far right middle. But you don't necessarily have to. You can just follow the balloon track. It does show you at the beginning of the game. Obstacle in the middle. At this point of the game, don't remove it. It costs $500. You're better off spending that on something else. It creates water, which will be useful if you're doing this on a poppable, but we're not talking about that right now. So, the next thing is your tower options. These wizards, every, couple seconds, a different wizard's effect is in action. Always one wizard. One wizard is always in action. One wizard is always doing their power. The blue wizard slows down your attack speed, I think, in half of one tower. Green minimizes range to almost nothing. So you do want to keep, if it's a tower that won't be immune, which will be most, you want to keep the towers close range. That's really important. Then, red will completely disable the tower, which is dangerous. I believe at this point, pretty early on, you get access to... Hey, we actually are wearing it. Jake's pink sweater. It protects Jake from all, hazards and those things. Would include the wizards. But what's even better is the wizards will attack him. It just won't do anything to him. So, he's very useful. I believe you have pink sweater at this point. If not, then you don't necessarily need to worry about it, but it means you're just going to need to have a lot of towers for this map. So spamming is going to be a bit more important, which is going to be helpful with this businessman. Finn, Jake, you might even want one more businessman before you go for a Brofist. One, maybe even two, depending on your situation. It makes a big deal. One thing quickly about trinkets, the basic trinkets, the common ones. There's quite a few. I'm going to go over this quickly. Commons and uncommon. Weapons, really, you probably won't have more than one. If a weapon gives damage, pick it. I don't think any of the early ones do. Damage is first. Attack speed and pierce are second. Range is probably last. But weapons aren't that important early on. Allies, similarly, if you have them, they sort of get to a point where you just want to spam them. For trinkets, there's a couple here that stand out as being pretty useful. This one, +1 damage to camo balloons. If you want someone to be your main camo protection, especially Psy potentially, once you get him, can be very useful. This one here, not too important, but it could be later on. For the early game, for these first 30 rounds, condiments is really useful. It'll turn balloons down to red and yellows. It's a pretty big deal. Beyond that, though, the power rings, all of them are very useful. Poison, or this is the chill, sorry. Where is poison? Are you poison? No. Power ring of strength, actually quite a good one. All of the power rings are very useful trinkets. They're super good. So is James Lucky Coin. It gives 5% chance to double damage. That's sort of a way of damage. They're all just generally very useful trinkets. I definitely recommend going for them. In terms of, once again, common, this one's pretty good for later on when you get to hard difficulty, because +1 damage to ceramics and mobs, but really, you just want to be focusing on those power rings. And one last big thing, actually, quick, for camo balloons. If you get it, Horsey Soap is super useful. Placed on basically any tower, it should deal with all the camo balloons for at least normal mode. Hard mode, probably not, but at least early game, it can avoid you from having to spend that extra money getting it, and it's pretty reliable. Also works on regrow balloons. It's very helpful. Definitely recommend it. But we may get back to that later. But yeah, that's sort of it for this map. There isn't really all that much to talk about. Get Finn, get Jake. Max can be useful. I recommend targeting him on strong. Same thing if it's not for camo protections. PB. Max, you can unlock camo protection through upgrades. Can be useful. You can definitely rely on that as well. I probably recommend getting both because PB and Max are both very unreliable with camo protection. But definitely helpful. And that should be you getting Sam. If you get Sam, awesome. Sam will be very useful, not necessarily as a starting character, but she has homing, which none of your other towers do at this point, so super duper useful. Then we have the map where you get Psy, which is actually the same area you get Super Monkey. Super Monkey's maps are a little bit more difficult, but we will actually get back to him because he'll probably be closer to the end of this video. Not necessarily though, actually. So, I'm going to talk about these characters for now. That'll probably be a big chunk of this video, to be honest. Like I said, this is definitely for more beginners. If you want, let me know. I'll do more of like a late game guide later on. But for Sai, you need to beat all 3 of these maps. Backdoor, Lemon Grab Fortress, and similarly to Sam, we have Reconditioning Chamber, which also has difficulties. This one has electric floors. 1 triangle at all time will be electric. Important thing to note, if you're using Ice King, which you can, he's very powerful early on, he can be placed on ice, water, and lava. Ice, water. On water, land, and lava. So if you want to place him at the front there, or exit, it's really good. It'll do significant damage. Beyond that, once again, if you have Jake or Finn with his pink sweater, he's super useful. Otherwise, try to spread your defense out on all 3 triangles. That's my recommendation. If you can get Jake and Finn in range with Pro Fist and they're on different triangles, that's best. If it's not doable, it's not the end of the world, but you might want to prolong that a little bit or put that off a little bit until you get more basic defense. But Ice King will be good if you can get him on the water, since that means he won't be disabled at all. Once again, though, with Finn as well, if he has the pink sweater, it's really useful. The other 2 maps are pretty basic. Backdoor's really easy, they loop around. It can be a little challenging since it's not super long, there's not a ton of room for you to deal with the balloons, but not that bad. Actually, that's one of the easier parts about Reconditioning Room, is it does have the loops. And this map, Lemon Grab Fortress. Each round they come from a different slot. They will come from the bottom 2 and the middle 2. They will never come from the top 2, but they all exit from the top 2. So I recommend centralizing your damage around the center, probably in the top left and top right, sort of like quadrants, if you see. So on the middle paths, when they loop down, right above that is probably where I recommend placing your towers. There wasn't really too much else to say with this. It's Sam and Sai. Once you get those, actually, no, over here, we may as well take a look at it, because this guy is an option, Super Monkey. The one thing I will say is, you can't really afford him. So, if you want to, you can probably afford Super Monkey on this. This map, Crying Mountain, super easy, not much to talk about. His final map, Super Monkey Villa, a little more challenging because they have the chairs at the front, but just place your towers closer to like where underneath the stairs and to the right of the pool. Somewhere in that general area is where you focus your towers. You should be fine. Honestly, the most difficult of these rounds or of these maps is probably Roughhouser Village. You can place towers in the middle there, and unfortunately a lot of your towers won't reach across, so this map is a little difficult. This map is tremendously easier with Flame Princess, so I would probably recommend getting Flame Princess first, but if you want to, you can go for Super Monkey. But he costs $3,000, he's pretty expensive to save up for, and he won't have camo whatsoever, and even to get lead is another additional, I believe it's roughly $4,500. So he can be super useful. He is very powerful, and for going to that hard mode, when you get to that point, he will be super useful, but for early game, he's not that great. So he is important. You do definitely want to pick him up before you move into hard mode. But for now, once you get those, this is going to be a challenge. This is a big deal, but this is going to be a challenge. We have to talk about, this is probably the end for the towers. We'll talk about other things before we completely end off today. Flame Princess. Super useful early game. Lead pop power. Cheap camo. Homing. Pretty good damage. Lots of projectiles. Fast attack speed. Really powerful. This map. Lava pools. Pretty easy. Not that hard. Then we have Fire Kingdom Castle. Similarly, pretty easy. There's a loop. You should be able to see it. If not, it's right in this, either center left or center right. They both have the loop there. And for this map, I recommend in that first, if you see the center lava pool to the left of it, and that little, I want to say semicircle oval thing, that's probably where I recommend placing all of your towers. Melee towers farther up, more ranged towers lower down. Keep in mind, once again, Ice King, he can be placed on the lava, so at that top, like near the entrance, the curve there, that first lava pool, that can be very, very useful. This is the hard map. This is the map I'm actually going to go into for a sec. This is a really hard map. I'm not going to lie. I died a lot when I first went for Flame Princess. But she is worth it. I'm going to tell you this outright. She will make all the other maps and all the other characters so much easier to get. But she's difficult. Starting with Sam can work, but it will often lead you to a dead end. Sai, you might be tempted to, super good. I'm going to tell you the truth here. Finn. And is he even in my setup? No, he's not. Businessmen. Finn, businessman. Place one here. One here. Once you're in this place, you can put one there, one there, one there, one there, there. Spam them. They're really powerful. However, you are going to need cam protection. And you are going to need lead pop power. So Sai, I recommend probably going before. Sai and Sam are definitely good. They can be good DPS. And they would be your central towers, which I probably place around here since they can reach both paths. Don't get them too quickly, don't get them too early, but later, once you get some more upgrades, they can be pretty powerful. Lead pop power is actually the biggest issue at this point, because Sam can get it, but very unreliable. Jake can, but also not all that reliable, plus very small range. So if you are going to use Jake, definitely use butt push. But the one thing I will say, we're just going to place a tower here, don't worry, I know you can't do this, since my Sam has lots of trinkets and things. But this is to show a point. Lead pop power I would get, but this is definitely useful. I would probably save this ability for the lead pop power rounds. Flame Princess, once she stands up here, you tap her, activates her demon form or fire elemental. These turn into rings of fire. It doesn't last very long, but it's lead pop power because it's fire. So I recommend saving that for whenever you see lead balloons. Beyond that, you definitely do want to get Jake. I would probably say, here, I'm just going to put Sai there, let's say. This is probably one of the issues, by the way. Sai can target both sides pretty well. Obviously, mine is more powerful, so don't expect your Sam to be this powerful. But she can target both sides fairly well, especially if you get it to double beam. She can have one on each side, which is pretty useful. I did focus more on her than Sai, but Sai was my cam protection. Jake here, I definitely would go for... Did I grab the wrong upgrade? Yeah, I did. Butt push. Well, I mean, I went for Jack of all trades. Definitely useful. But butt push is really good because it sends the balloons back. It's very early knockback. We are going to show this quickly here since this is probably one of the bigger maps we're going to talk about. It's really useful, especially with your lead pop power. It makes a big deal. So, heading off one last time. Yes, or not one last time. Probably quite a few more times. I'm sorry. This video might be a bit boring if you're more later on. If you're still watching, though, it might be interesting to see your mistakes, or if you made similar mistakes to me, because I made a lot of these mistakes that I'm talking about. But after this, there's a couple options. There really are. So, first things, Juggernaut Max, not an option. Ignore him for so long. Commander Cassie, not an option. Ignore. Marceline is an option. You can go for her. Her maps, honestly, all of them lead to one thing. All of them except Bridge and Tower, place your monkeys at the exit. It's just the best option to do it. Pretty much the only way to do it. You don't have a lot of track. It can be done, but you really don't have a lot of track. Adventure Time, or not Adventure Time, Bridge and Tower, you need long-range towers, which Flame Princess is very good for. So I definitely recommend having Flame Princess for that. Most of them can fly, though, can be very useful pop power early on. Very useful, but a pretty hard map to set to get. You can go for her next. Super Monkey, like I said, isn't that bad. I'd probably go for Super Monkey next, then maybe Marceline. Captain Cassie, once again, quite easy, but limited by water. So, definitely useful and definitely powerful. And for your first hard mode maps, these are actually some of the best maps to do, Underwater City. But, yeah, Captain Cassie, definitely easy to get. However, she's simply limited to water, which isn't all that great. C4 Charlie, don't even bother. Honestly, don't even bother with C4 Charlie. He's a nightmare, ignore him. And that's all of them. That is all of the towers. So, actually, sorry, one last one I forgot to talk about. Warrior PB, the zombie map. So this is a big deal. Because this is the first maps you will ever be doing on hard mode. It just is. And you know why? It's because you need to beat hard mode to unlock her, which is a bit more difficult. They have things like this. Regrow balloons. What? No. Yes, so one of these, the one on the left means more regrows. The one on the right means they regrow faster. It's pretty difficult. Candy Fountain is a pretty easy map. It does the loop around. It shouldn't be too bad. Same thing with Candy Forest. They're not too bad. It's once you get here, because on hard mode, there's still the more regrows, but there's also zombie balloons. Zombie balloons can be very scary, even late game, because when you pop them, the next round they spawn back at full health. So yeah, it ends up some rounds late game you end up with like it's a lot of balloons. You deal with them, it's not that bad, but then the next round you're dealing with all the new like blimps and things, and just tons of rainbow balloons or ceramics underneath, and it makes things a lot harder. But the thing is, you gotta place your towers near the front X and the back, I guess. Here, I'll show this quickly. Might as well do it on hard mode. You want to place your towers both here, at the front area there, and over here. It's going to be difficult. The zombie balloons all come off the top, which is definitely helpful. If you have Flame Princess, and you have, once you get some basic trinkets and weapons, personally, by the time you have Flame Princess, Sam, Sai, probably Super Monkey, Marceline, I'd probably say, once you have Sai, Sam, Fire Princess, then you can go for Super Monkey, Marceline, Captain Cassie. I think that's them all that are normal mode. Then you come here for Warrior PB. She's super powerful, I will admit. Or Candy Archers, even though if you just have access to those. They're really good, especially for the maps like the Wizard Tower map where it picks a single tower. It quite often will pick the Candy Archer Sentry. So she's definitely worth it, but hard mode is going to be challenging. By the time you get to this point, though, you have all those other characters I mentioned. You should have enough trinkets and weapons to unlock them. The one thing I will say is, never have an empty trinket slot, never have an empty weapon slot, never have an empty ally slot. You want to fill those up. Even if it's just a common, even if it gives +1 range and you're like, oh, this is stupid, this won't help. It will. It adds up. It really does. So that's all I really have to say in terms of that. One last thing before we end off. This is most of the video, talking about the characters, because that's a big part of early game. One thing I will say is, starting off early, it does take a little bit, but once you reach level 10, you get your first quest slot. Quests you can do once a day. They can be pretty powerful. Try to do them. If they're too difficult, feel free to reroll with an ad or gems. I don't recommend spending gems, actually, but with an ad, you can if you want. They're really useful. They give chests, and they can give you access to hard, extreme, or silver, gold, and sometimes even diamond chests when you can't even beat hard mode, which can make a big, big deal. If you can get a gold chest, specifically the beat a map with fewer than 3 characters, it's insanely good. It's definitely useful. It can be a big boost in skipping through some of those grinding of normal and hard mode stages. I definitely recommend focusing on the quests. They're also one of the best sources of hero items. You get more quest slots as you level up. It's a big deal. Shards. Personal recommendation. Save for an epic wish orb, because every epic item is super good. All of them are good. Pretty much. Some aren't as great, but they're all still useful. Your first shards, save for the epic wish orb. Afterwards, I'd probably be farming some rares until you can get either some BMO. There were a lot of really useful rare trinkets. There's Damage Ring, there's BMO, there's a couple others I can't really think off the top of my head. Super useful. After you have done maybe 5-10 more rare wish orbs, I'd probably head back to epics and stick there for a while in terms of shards. If you, by the way, in case you're curious, shards, if you don't want the item, you can shard the wish orb for, well, shards, which you can use for more wish orbs. Pretty useful. That's pretty much it. One last thing quickly. Powers. I don't really use any of them, to be honest, but for helping out early game, the one time I'd say to use them, the one time, is to unlock your characters. On Warrior PB, for example, you might not have many. I definitely wouldn't recommend necessarily spending coins to buy them, though you can. As you see, I have lots of coins. They're not that useful. It's for continuing powers. But you can definitely use them when you're trying to unlock those early game characters. If you're stuck on Fire Princess or something like that, even something early on, I didn't mean to exit out of that. Even the more basic powers, like this coin, gives a little cash, extra cash goes a long way. All of them can make a big difference. This one, Dimension Disruptor, destroys all balloons. They can be expensive. A lot of them, though, you get for free. Just every stage you get a power-up. They can be very useful. I definitely recommend using them on those hero stages. The toughest stage for Warrior PB, Flame Princess, Sam, Sai, all of them. And later on, Super Monkey and all those other ones. the powers will be helpful. If you're stuck, I recommend trying without, because it's fun. But if you're stuck, definitely that you use them, get the characters, and then you probably won't need them for the next one. It makes a big deal. I'm not going to talk about the motion games today, so the last thing we're actually going to talk about... Actually, I'm not sure if there is too much more to talk about. That's sort of it. That's talking about normal, hard mode, some Oleon trinkets, weapons, allies, getting the heroes. That's the big deal about this. The one last thing I will say is quickly mention this. I've mentioned this a lot if you followed along. The Adventure Quest chests. I also ignored them when I was early game. Don't. They're super good. Later on, it's insane because the Improper one gives you an epic wish orb every time. But the normal mode one guarantees, I believe it is only an uncommon wish orb. So it's not the best, but it guarantees one, and that's pretty useful. It gives you lots of gems, gold, and guarantees an uncommon wish orb. That's a big deal. The rare one guarantees a rare, or the hard mode. The extreme guarantees a super rare. Like, it adds up quickly. So if you can do those hard adventure quests, I definitely recommend doing them, finishing off a set before you move on to more maps for grinding and something like that, because it's just really useful. Oh wait, the shop, I almost forgot. Before we end off today, because we're nearing our end, I promise, I know this is probably a fairly long video, the shop is interesting. Because there's a lot of things to talk about, because it's gems. I definitely recommend all your gems save up for the shop. That's definitely the best use for them. You get a lot of them, save them for the shop. An epic is 300, a super rare is 125, and a rare is 90. A few things you should get. First thing I would say, save up your gems. Save them up. Because one thing I'll say is, if it's in the shop, the Thought Cannon wand, buy it. Buy it. It's super overpowered, albeit not very useful early game, even just mid-game. Super broken, will easily skip you through its wish orb grinding. If you hit a Moab, it dies, you get gold, it can give you lives, and it can give you wish orbs. Nothing else to say. If you can get it, make sure if it's ever in the shop, you have enough gems. Make sure you have enough gems. Make sure you have 300 gems on you, because if it's ever in the shop, this is your first priority. Simply. Same thing with your wish orbs. If you ever see it, buy it. Insanely good. Other things to keep in mind, especially if you're using Super Monkey, otherwise it's not that good. Dr. Monkey's secret weapon is very powerful. One thing I will say, camo detection can oh, that's in a trinket. Well, let's focus on weapons here for a second. Honestly, those are probably the main weapons that are super good. Devil Monster Bass, Golden Viola, 40 Sword, they're all Wand of Disbursement, they're all powerful. Dragon Fangs, definitely. But none of them are first priority in terms of shop. I'd probably say Thought Cannon Wand, maybe Dr. Monkey's super weapon, that's probably it. In terms of allies, there's a couple. Cobra for sure. If he's in the shop, he's worth it. Buy him. I know I said save 300 gems for Thought Cannon Wand, but if Cobra shows up, he's also worth it. Same. This goes for if you get them in wish orbs as well. BMO, money making, again, super powerful. That's part of the reason Cobra, but he also cuts ability cooldowns in half. It's really good. Tiny Manticore's powerful, but not really shop worthy. Those are the main shop items, I'd say, in terms of allies. And then trinkets. We're heading down here, yes. There's a couple, once again. Nothing too crazy, but definitely a couple. I will say, in terms of shop. See, this difficult part. Those, like, really, the Thought Cannon Wand is the biggest shop deal. Same with Cobra. Same with BMO. Those are shop items. If they're in there, they're really helpful early game. In terms of, besides those three, although definitely not a priority, Google, like, in terms of those three are the main three. Thought Cannon Wand, then Cobra, then BMO. BMO's only rare, so if you're lucky enough, you can get him up very early. He's money making. He's just super useful. They're really big deals. What can be a big deal early game is actually the magic coin purse. It's more money once again. Money is honestly just a really big deal in terms of that. So, yeah, sort of, you should probably buy it. Treasure chest keys also work. They can also give you wish orbs, as well as gems, actually, is a big deal with treasure chest keys. So if they're in the shop, they're definitely higher priority as well. That's probably it in terms of shop items. But one quickly last thing, because I do want to mention this quickly. the money-making items. Not necessarily talking about this, but yeah, in general, this is a really good rare item. Thief King's Dagger, equip it to Finn, it's really good. I'm gonna leave it there for now, honestly. I hope you guys did learn something, if you're here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know how the new microphone sounds, because I'm curious. Yeah, I hope this was helpful to some of you guys if you're new or beginners or starting off still or something like that. If you are looking for a late game guide, I'm happy to do it. If you want me to go more detailed into certain topics, I am working on character guides. A couple of them are already out. I have a lot of videos for this game, so make sure to check some out because some of them are very useful. And also sometimes I randomly just spout out random bits of tips and information. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. Thank you all for watching. Please consider giving the video a like if you enjoyed, subscribing to join the Purple Elephant Squad because it makes my day. It's super nice. I really do appreciate it. We're getting really close to 450, and that's a big deal. Big deal. And then there's 500, and, you know, the dream of 1,000 whenever that comes, so I really appreciate it. Until then, though, I'll see you all tomorrow, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!